Jackie Balls, and we are presenting a course called Aesthetics of Movement, which is an introduction to dance class for non-dance majors. We were approached because there were not enough creative arts electives offered by the university, so we agreed to create a course that we both taught for 15 plus years. But the course has, half of the course is face-to-face, I mean, it's a face-to-face course, but half of it is physical activity, learning dance. The course is assessed, however, through writing. It's a writing in the disciplines course as well as creative arts. So our challenge was, how do we fulfill what we think is very important, that kinesthetic education, through an online course? Most of the assessment is writing, so they have to look at dance performances and they have to analyze. They use Feldman model, so they have to describe, analyze, interpret, evaluate. And it's so important that they have a kinesthetic understanding of the vocabulary or the properties of dance. So, you can write down on, definitions, bound, flow, and free flow, but they have to do bound flow, and they have to understand free flow, so their power of observation is better. So what we did with the help of the instruction design teams, the videographers, Taylor Fail and his group came in and videoed. What we created were micro dance classes that they could take at home. They were 20 minutes in length, taught by both UH dance faculty as well as we reached out to the community to other professional dancers. So we got a hip hop artist. We contracted Lauren Anderson, who is now retired from Houston Ballet, and who else did we get? Amy L., an aerial dance artist. So we went in and videoed and uploaded all this onto Blackboard with the help of the instructional design team. The students are then to take the class, the 20-minute class. And of course the idea is, how do we keep them accountable that they are actually taking the class? And Flipgrid was introduced to us, again, through Taylor and the team, as a way of each individual student uploading their own 90 seconds of work. Now, I keep referring back to Jackie because she is the instructor. She knows all the nuts and bolts about the course. She really did develop and fine-tune it. We're just we're co-developers, but she's really the instructor. So what we want to show you is examples of the video that we created, the micro dance classes, and then some flip grids. This is an example of teaching them the properties of dance so they can physicalize dance when they are watching and writing and analyzing dance. At the University of Houston, and this module is on the elements of dance: body, space, time, and energy. And this is a vocabulary that you need to learn so that when you watch dance, you will be able to actually observe and articulate when you write. Body parts. Isolate one part of your body. The properties are listed. We got students, dance students, to demonstrate for us. And then they are supposed to be at home watching the video and creating, figuring out body parts and as they are watching. You move your spine from side to side. After they complete the 20-minute video, then they're to upload some movement, their 90 seconds, onto Flipgrid.
So this is like when you first go into the website, and I've set these up. Each one of these is called a question, and so it has the description of the assignment. So like, for example, these are their introduction videos, and then each one of them is just talking about themselves for 90 seconds. And then this is an example of what she was talking about the elements, trying to get them set up for the semester. This is from this semester. I just happened to have someone who turned it in early, who did a pretty good job.
Hi, my name is Jessica, and my first element is body, and I'm going to be isolating my head, legs, and feet. The non-locomotive aspect is stretching.
It's kind of bright too. Is this dim? Is there a dimmer?
And also, as you can see, you know, I had to make it so that they would be able to do this anywhere. So they're in bedrooms, in hallways, in their front yards. Okay, so that's an example of her element submission.
You have the ballet with other people.
Yeah.
One way that we worked in collaboration is that they could teach their movement to someone else so that they could upload their Flipgrid with a friend or two, meaning that they would have to talk and discuss and teach somebody else their movement, which is something that we would do in a face-to-face course, is have that element of collaboration. Using community, kind of using our community partners, other dance professionals in the community. This is Lauren Anderson on the right. And students in the course are learning a ballet class taught by Lauren Anderson from the Houston Ballet.
Second position.
And we did the same with the hip hop, so we have a professional hip hop company, so the class is being taught by a professional dancer that is teaching the students.
Now,
And that might be our time. Yeah,
that it?
so I think we're at time. Thank you.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of background into the course first, what the course actually is, and then I'm going to introduce you to the basic format, and I'll spend most of the time talking about the discussion boards in the class, how they were set up, and then how I handled assessment of those discussion boards. 2352 World Cinema is a humanities core course, which means we draw from a very large field of students. The course is capped at 30, and it is usually full. The face-to-face version, which we do still do almost every semester, is discussion-based. It's a huge part of the grade. It's also a huge part of the humanities core course requirements. So that was sort of one of the challenges of shaping this course, was how to keep that an important part of the course. The course also has a significant writing component, which is handled in 2 writing assignments during the semester. The particular course that I'm introducing today is our summer session course, so it is taking place within 6 weeks. It's a very, very compact course, which makes it a bit of a unique situation, I think, online. In the course of this 6 weeks, I'll give you a quick rundown of what students are expected to do. They view 9 films. They read related texts. They also read portions of a longer textbook dealing with writing about film. They participate in the discussion boards, which is the largest part of the grade distribution. They watch videos. I used my media site to create my lecture videos. Some are sort of broader background videos. Some are shorter scene analyses, so on and so forth. Each module has 1 to 3 videos. And then halfway through the session, they write a short essay, and then there's a longer final research paper at the very end. So one other thing I did want to mention is that because this is a core course, some of the assignments are somewhat stipulated by the core course requirements. So there's flexibility, but not 100% flexibility in creating this kind of course, and so that's also a bit of a challenge when you're thinking how to structure things. So students enter the course on the content page, the very first content page. They view an introductory presentation, and then the course syllabus that some of you have in front of you is available as well. Again, the introductory presentation is done through my media site, and I essentially tell them to read the syllabus and highlight some things and kind of direct them into that first module. As I go through this format, I'll mention some things that worked really well and some things that didn't work so well, just so you have an idea. The course is open. In other words, students can view all material, all videos, all texts at all times. Okay? There's no sort of forced viewing of videos or anything like that before they can go on to papers. I did that with the intention, of course, that students would be able to refer back once they're working on papers, that they would go back into previous discussions, cover earlier texts, make connections between the modules. I wanted a less sort of forced progress through the course. That was good in a lot of ways. In other ways, of course, toward the end of the semester, I feel, especially like the lecture videos were kind of getting left off to the side. You know, you sort of start getting the feeling that students aren't quite putting as much time into the lecture videos, so that's also a bad side of it. I think I would, the next time I kind of redesign the course, add some more sort of forced viewing that way. One thing I like about the structure of this first page is that I did list under each module name, basically compiled the tasks for each week underneath, so that all the information they need to complete the class is on this first page, essentially. Once you actually go into the learning module, then the module itself is essentially a collection of the texts, discussion boards, so on and so forth, that they need for that. In that way, the module itself is not particularly complexly structured. It's just a group of materials. Just checking my notes here, making sure. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the discussion boards. That's most of the information you probably need about the general format of the course. There are 2 discussion boards per week per module in this class. Students have to have a total of 4 posts per week. As this loads, I'm going to direct you to, I think it's page 3 of the syllabus. Between page 2 and 3, give some pretty exact stipulations for what discussion board posts need to look like. Since discussion is such an important part of this course, my attempt at structuring discussion boards this way that it would in some way mimic how discussion works in class, that we sort of start out with one topic, and you branch off into other topics, talk about specific scenes, and then eventually sort of shape it back and sort of draw some points together and come to sort of some larger conclusions about the topic at hand. I did that by starting with one question. So each discussion board begins with one multi-layered question. Once responses started coming in during the week, I would sort of jump in, respond individually to students, but then also at various points in the week introduce new questions, depending to some degree on how the discussion was working. And in that way, students, especially students who logged in later in the course, had multiple questions, essentially, that they could cover if they wanted to. And I'll go ahead and just so you can kind of get a sense for what the discussion looked like here. One of the requirements for discussion was that students post a combination of original and response to other students. And you can sort of see here that we have a variety of original, and then I've kind of inserted myself as well into various times, introducing new threads. I also, while I was working in the discussion board, tried to really draw connections to students and say, hey, Michelle, take a look at what Danny said about the band's visit. You know, I think your points are linked. You may want to talk or whatever. You know, kind of adding that little bit of personal kind of twist to things. Things that I liked. For about 20% of the students who were super proactive about contributing throughout the week, it was great. They were able to see the shape of the discussion. I really felt like for those students, it was really similar to the kind of face-to-face classroom experience, which I like. Of course, we always have a large amount of students also that contribute at 11:59 p.m. 2 days a week. And in that case, you very much have the feeling that not all posts are being read. You know, there's sort of some lacking information there. So that's obviously a challenge, and it may be something, idea of kind of rethinking, bringing classroom discussion directly online, sort of just rethinking how that works. So there were good and bad things about it. As far as assessing discussion boards go, I did create a rubric, which is on page 3. And very, very quickly, I'll go through the points, the requirements that I had for the discussion board posts. That was 4 posts total, 2 for discussion board, contributed reasonably throughout the week. Again, how students interpreted that very well had a direct impact on what they got out of the class. If contributed throughout the week meant Wednesday night at 11:59 and Sunday night at 11:59, it was much different than obviously for the students who were really contributing multiple times throughout. Posts needed to be a combination of original and response. posts needed to include examples from films and texts. Posts needed to reflect that the student had read and viewed the materials from the module, and then posts had to show appropriate university level use of grammar and mechanics. And that was very important because of the writing component of this course. We want students to learn about writing about film, but in practice, we're also teaching pretty basic writing skills, thesis statements, what paragraphs do, so on and so forth, and that's try to focus on that in the discussion boards as well. And then that adds up to a numeric grade that they got at the end of each week, and then through the discussion board assessment tool, you can also obviously type in personal comments to the students, commenting on their work, whatever, so on and so forth. So those are my discussion boards. Obviously, when the question part comes up, if you have any questions about paper assessment, things like that, I'm more than happy to talk about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here today. My name is Ginger Lucas, and I'm going to be reviewing a course that we're actually delivering in a hybrid format right now, but I'm developing it for 100% fully online. And it's Assessment in Social Work Practice. And a lot of people ask me, how do you teach social work online? And now my new answer is, if you can teach dance online, you can teach social work online. So, so I've been teaching for about 12 years online. And so as I kind of walk you through this course, I thought I'd kind of review some tips that I have for developing online courses and for teaching online. Okay, so the first tip I have is to build a well-organized course. Course formats should be easy to follow. Multiple courses within a discipline should follow similar formats. And what I mean by that is when you're developing an online course and you follow a similar format throughout the modules and the students understand the flow of the course, they tend to have fewer questions for faculty, so it benefits faculty teaching the course. And students really kind of adapt a learning curve to the course, and they begin to understand, okay, this is where I go to turn in assignments. This is where I go to find information. This is how I post my discussion boards. So there's a learning curve in the beginning, but towards the middle of the semester, end of the semester, everybody pretty much has it down pat. In the Graduate College of Social Work, we're actually developing a fully 100% online MSW program that rolls out in the fall of 2016. And so when we're developing these courses, what we're trying to do is create kind of a similar format for all of our courses in our entire program. So that learning curve might happen in the first semester with students familiarizing themselves with the online flow. But then by the time they're midway through their program or even into the middle of their first semester, they kind of understand how online programs work and what they need to do to be successful in the program. And so I want to show you a little bit how I've structured our courses at the Graduate College of Social Work. We open always to an announcement page. And this is great because when a student opens their course in Blackboard, the first thing they see is anything you want them to see right away. You can go in and update these announcements with reminders that assignments are coming due or a new link to some new great information that you found that you want to share with your students. Under the toolbar beside announcements, I don't know if you can see it real well, the next line item is course information, and I'm going to get back to that in just a minute. But the next item that they see on their toolbar is their learning modules. So they would click on this, and they see all the modules for the course. When you open Module 1, you'll see required reading, so that would be the chapters that you want them to read, particular textbook, articles, anything that you want required reading for that module. And then you'll have a folder with learning activities. And this can incorporate a various amount of things in there. So you think of learning activities and you think of what am I doing in the classroom and how can I adapt that for online? And it wouldn't necessarily be a mirror kind of adaptation, but you might offer PowerPoints like you do in the classroom. You might offer videos to reinforce learning. You might offer actual activities that are non-graded activities. Activities that you'd be doing in the classroom. And that's where we kind of store all of that. So that's they have to read, then they have to do their learning activities, and then we have a discussion board. And we just heard about a way to kind of organize discussion boards. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some helpful hints for managing those too, because they can kind of become very large and unmanageable. And then finally, every module will have a quiz. And that sounds maybe elementary, because we're in a graduate college of social work. The quiz is really designed as a tool for students to identify, are they learning the module objectives that they need to be learning? And so this quiz is there, and it can be used as part of the grade in the course, or it can be used as a tool for students to say, hey, wait, I'm not understanding this part. I need to go back and review some of these learning activities. But it's also a great tool for faculty, because we can go in and say, whoa, in Module 1, everybody missed this particular concept in this quiz. And so now I need to figure out what's missing. Where are those holes? Where are those gaps in Module 1? And then as you scroll down on the toolbar on the left, you'll see assignments. And this is where all assignments that are part of the grade of the course are turned in. So students sometimes in the beginning will miss a deadline, and they'll say, well, I didn't know where the link was to turn it in. Or they'll try to email it to faculty, and it might get lost in an email. And so this is a way that if all assignments are kind of turned in the same way, that it can avoid some of those issues. You'll see here, too, that the assignments are listed here, are all the assignments for the course. And there's a description and a rubric attached to each assignment, and maybe some general information about the assignment. But my second kind of tip is to eliminate embedded dates in a course. If you think about developing online courses, you think that online courses are very front-heavy in developing, right? You spend a lot of time planning and developing online courses, but ideally, and what everybody's been telling you, is you develop the course now and it's going to pay off later, because it's going to save you a lot of time, because you already have everything ready to go. Your prep time will go down. Well, it really does only go down if you can really make it easy for the second semester in teaching this course. And so one way to make it easy is to eliminate those embedded dates within your modules. So you wouldn't say under Module 1, don't forget your paper's due on February 3rd, right? Because then you're going to have to remember, I got to go back and change that next semester, because now it's due September 3rd or whatever. So what we try to do is just eliminate all embedded dates within the content of the course and only list dates in 2 places. So here's an example of an assignment that we have. This is located under our assignment tab. No dates on there, just an assignment description and a rubric, which I didn't attach here. So the 2 places that we put dates are on the course syllabus, and this is located under course information on my toolbar. And then below that, I have directly on the screen built a chart that is my course schedule. So when I teach this course next semester, all I need to do is go in and change those due dates there. It also helps eliminate confusion. If you extend a deadline midway through the semester because you realize people need more time on something, but then it's embedded somewhere that it's due on a different day, you'll get 25 emails like, what day is it due, and that kind of thing. So it's really best to just have your dates located in one place. Okay, the third tip that I've felt is very helpful is adding an instructor-only column. And this column is found at the very end on the toolbar, and it's hidden from students. It's instructor only. The benefit to this is you can add some notes for the next time you teach the course. So when you're teaching a course online, you think, oh, I really want to update that reading for that particular module because I don't like it, or it's outdated. And so you can put in that note in there, and then when you teach it the next semester, that could be the first thing that you go to is instructor only. What were my notes about that course? It's been a year since I taught it. You can go back and refer to that. It also comes in handy if you're not going to be the only one teaching the course. So if you're developing a course that maybe an adjunct faculty is going to take over at some point, or you're going to share with a colleague, you can put your notes about the course. What's working well? What might need to be tweaked? And then I also included a folder where you could transfer materials or readings that you want to archive. You're not ready to delete them out of the course because you may want to go back to them again, but you didn't really need them this semester, or you think that maybe a colleague of yours might want to use them, but you didn't particularly want to use them this semester. So it's a good place to store some information so that it's still in the course. You'll have access to it if you want to bring it back. Okay, and then the fourth tip is to incorporate various media options and create opportunities for engagement. And so when we think about online teaching, and you say, well, how do you keep your students engaged in an online course? Most people that have taught online will say, well, we do discussion boards. And discussion boards and I have a very like love-hate relationship because they are great and it encourages people to talk. But you have the people that post at 11:59 before the deadline, and you have the people that you know maybe aren't reading everybody's post. And so one thing we've developed is groups for discussion boards. So think of in a large classroom, I've got 48 students enrolled in this course right now. I've created 8 discussion board groups, 6 people in a group. They will talk amongst each other about the prompt that I give. And then we'll have to read each other's comments and post. And it's a little bit more manageable. I hope that we can see that they're going to get more out of it. It's going to take some of the pressure off of me. I'll have people make summary statements and post them to a main discussion board group. There's a lot of different options you can play around with it. But I think it can be a little bit better way to manage discussion board groups. So that's one way to encourage engagement. There's a program out there called EduCanon that I've recently discovered and I really like. And I made a video to show you how to make a video on there. So I'm going to try to see if this will play. Oops. Sorry, I might need some technical help here. Oh, maybe I need the mouse. Is it the mouse that?
I think it's because this is not. Let me see if I can.
So I'm going to explain a little bit about what EduCanon does, but basically you create a video. So this could be a video of you doing a PowerPoint lecture, or it could be a video that you have access to, and you upload the video into EduCanon. And so you create what they call a bulb. And in the middle of the video, at any point in the video, you determine where you can stop the video and ask a question. Yes. And you can stop the video and ask a particular question, and it would give you, you would have to input the question. It doesn't create the question for you. You have to think of the question. You could do multiple choice. You could do an open question where you could say, what do you think is important to look for in a social work assessment? And students can answer, and they just type it in. And once they've typed it in and they click the thumbs up sign, if they get the answer correct, the video will move on and they can continue watching the video. It's one way to really assure that students are watching what you're creating. And so that's what I like about it. But okay, let's see if it'll play here.
I'm going to share with you EduCanon. EduCanon is a free program whereby you can upload videos and within the videos embed questions. It's very easy to use and it's a great way to keep students engaged in the content that you're providing online. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when a question pops up. But basically, the student would be watching a PowerPoint, and then in the middle of the PowerPoint, and you determine where that point is, a multiple choice question pops up. And when the student selects the correct answer, they are able to move back on into the PowerPoint and continue watching.
Okay, now I don't know how to get back to my PowerPoint, but so it's a great tool, very, very user-friendly. But like I said, you have to actually create the video first, or you can use a current video and upload it. Okay, wait. Oh, I don't know what that is. That's somebody else talking. That's the next video on that. Okay, so the other tool besides EduCanon that I think is, Okay, so the other tool, and maybe you guys, maybe some of you have used PowerPoint Mix, but I like PowerPoint Mix because most of us already have PowerPoints of our lectures, right? So you can go in, convert it into PowerPoint Mix. This is just an updated form of Office, I think. I'm not that technical of a person, so I think I'm saying that right. And you can actually add in sound to particular slides. Individual slides. You don't have to do the whole thing. You could just say, oh, wait, this is a difficult concept that I think I need to explain in more detail. Oh, that's not going to work either. But here's an example of a slide that I created for our orientation for online. And I put it has a little microphone up in the right-hand corner here. And when the students press the mic, oh, maybe that'll work. Let's see. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so that's an example of PowerPoint Mix. Okay, I don't know, it's not going forward now. Next slide, ready for the next slide. Okay, and then I also like podcasts. We are developing this online program, and we have a weekend college program that is hybrid, and most of the people in this program are working professionals. So they're spending a lot of time commuting in traffic in Houston area and other places. And so with a podcast, they can actually listen while they're commuting in their car, on a bus, on a train. And so I think just being able to incorporate various ways to get the content across to your students in an online class is helpful. Finally, the fifth tip, last one, is to try to utilize resources already available. So we can go in and create all these great videos of us lecturing, but sometimes people have done it already and they do it better than us. And so before you go in and you take the time to create a video to explain mental health assessment, go in and Google it and see what's out there. The University of Cincinnati has a great tool that I've used in my course in the past. They have videos embedded into their mental health assessment video that they created to teach that. And so I provide the link through Blackboard for my students. So that is my fifth tip. Thank you.
So I'm not going to tell you much about subsea engineering other than the fact that it doesn't have a curriculum anywhere. There are not textbooks on it. It's kind of a contemporary, meaning new or current event type of engineering. And it was something really required and demanded by the industry that came to speak to the Cullen College of Engineering. So this is our latest installment on engaging with industry. We came on the heels of petroleum engineering.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Bencher,
Oh.
but it's not linking.
It's not linking. Okay, let's see if I can screw this up a little bit.
Let's zoom in, and maybe you can do it with your finger like
Okay, how about that?
Is that okay?
Sure, we'll do that, sure. Okay, so the program itself is the next installment, like I said, with the College of Engineering's engagement with local industries. And we did come on the heels of petroleum engineering. So the question is, how do we put in a program that faces these types of challenges? And this is really only part of the cross sections of the thing that we would face. So one thing is our workforce isn't just Houston located. There's a majority of students that we have in Houston, but they go everywhere, and they go everywhere all the time. And so they travel a lot. Sometimes they're required to travel offshore and spend a couple of weeks out there. Sometimes they get transferred mid-semester and they're going to go to another country out there. They have half of our students are working full-time, so you can think of us as re-education of a workforce. But the other half of our students are coming in as new students. We have to deal with the fact that some people have families, meaning that we don't get their undivided attention maybe at the 5:30 to 8:30 time slot that we have per class. Again, curriculum is pretty undefined. It's kind of scattered a little bit. And sometimes there are language barriers. And if you see me, I speak a little bit faster than the average bear. So how do you handle things like this and make it happen? So this is one of our classrooms. And so now let me say who the we are, basically. And we have some of the people here today. So the we on the technology side, making things happen in the college as far as the hardware, the software, the recording of the lectures. These lectures are 3 hours long, 1 day a week. And they are edited into pieces so the student, if they miss something or don't understand it, can run back to a certain portion of the lecture, which means somebody has to sit there and edit a 3-hour course in engineering, and there's 7 of them in subsea engineering. So somebody's going straight to heaven. And that would have been JC back there. So he does all the editing with us, and the brains behind the operations on the technology side would be Debbie. And I've pretty much stayed out of her way to let it happen. If you have any questions on the technology, I'm definitely not the guy to ask on something like this. But this is the size classroom that we have. Now, there is a level of engagement and questions that really are needed in the type of courses that we pursue. So we have people that are on campus. We have people that are off campus. We have people that are sometimes out of the country. And they all get to log in and watch it. So every single lecture is recorded. You don't have to watch it at the time that we offer it. You just have to watch it sometime throughout the semester. And they're all kind of sequenced anyways. And the way that we've done this, meaning Debbie's done this, is we've put shells out there which says Lecture 1, Lecture 2, Lecture 3. So all the material in Lecture 1, when you click it open, is going to be the material that's associated with the course as well as the lecture. So it's very easy for students to follow, which I think was the recommendation over here. Make it simple. Make it something that even I could find. The TV and all the recordings happen automatically. Nothing's more amusing than watching some engineering faculty interface with AV equipment before a lecture. So it's very difficult to run some of these things from my viewpoint, but it isn't from those who actually are capable of doing these things. So these recordings start automatically, they stop automatically, and they're loaded over to a website which JC gets to see the next day. And again, this is stuff that Debbie has put together for us. So we appreciate it. So every time it starts and stops at the same time. We have microphones in the ceiling, so you can triangulate and kind of know where the instructor is if they were to walk around. We encourage them to stay where they are because we have to repeat the questions. But students' voices are not picked up by that. And the reason it is because during flu and cold season, it'd be nothing but a bunch of coughs throughout the season. I'm sorry, throughout that season and throughout that semester. And we're a little bit worried sometimes of pre-instructor evaluations that might be heard on the microphones. So we always tell everybody, please don't say anything incriminating because this room is live for the next 3 hours. And it will pick up some things because the microphones are pretty good, but we can get interact with the students. Now, the off-campus students and some of the students that are actually in the classroom, if they're a little embarrassed to ask anything in the classroom, they can type it in because some of the folks sitting in the front are the TAs, which are required to sit through the class. So the TAs are monitoring a discussion board, and if they have a question, they'll ask it on behalf of the students. The instructor will stop, they'll answer the question, and we'll get back to the lecture. Or they can use, like you had said before, the discussion boards. Not all of our classes, this is the face-to-face one, which I think is about 120 students in this class. And in this particular class, flow assurance, we might have up to 40 off-campus at the same time in the semester. It's not all of our classes are this big. Sometimes they're a little bit more quaint. Smaller, this is our classroom size for 50. So here are some challenges. The students that take this course pay a differentiated fee, and that's specifically, I think, about $800 per course, which supports all of these types of things. So what we're worried about now is making sure that the education that they get, they'll actually receive that education and can do something different. So this is something that an engineer has learned about adult education. So I don't know if you've heard about it before. It was news to me. But it's called constructivism, and it means that adults learn best by teaching themselves, which made sense when I reflected on my past life and going through graduate school. So what we do to maintain engagement beyond the lectures is we do create and teach some of the science of engineering, but we show its utility in the context of design. In other words, what are they going to do, or how do they need this knowledge base to actually execute the job? But more importantly, the hands-on education is executed in our classroom, which is the computer classroom. So we have about 40 high-end workstations here. As you can see up in the ceiling, we've got 2 projectors that projects on either side. And the students can work with the instructor as they're going along, showing them how to use the software, solve case studies, as well as work in a team on their own. So at the end of the semester, they are required to get together. And just because you're separated by 5,000 miles is not an excuse to not be part of a team. So they can use NetMeeting, they can use Skype, they can do whatever they need to, but at the end of the day, they're submitting a joint report where not only do they have the problem solved, but they have to be able to critique themselves and grade them each other, as well as what their contribution was, as well as the instructor gives a grade. But as part of our global outreach, we think that we have a unique opportunity to contribute more globally, meaning the University of Houston and the Cullen College of Engineering. So what we started was something called the Global Subsea University Alliance. So we actually have one of 2 programs in the world in subsea engineering, but we're trying to reach out to others. Remember I told you the workforce was global? Well, the ends of those yellow lines is where they wind up going. Okay, I didn't show anything in the Gulf, so some do go there. But this is where they go, so we have to have some type of coordinated curriculum. Our belief is that if you have an internet connection and you have an interest, we're the program to join. And if you can't join our program or you want some more face-to-face lecture, these are our partners that we can work with. So we all work together to come up with a common curriculum. We now share coursework. We can actually transfer classes amongst each other. So if you're in Singapore, happen to come to U of H, we'll accept 2 of those graduate courses in. But now it's coordinated. It's more of a not only just a coordination, but it helps somebody get through an education that they'd like to accomplish. So if they want to achieve a graduate education in subsea engineering, they're the ones to wind up doing it. And these are our partners right now internationally. This is some of our ambitions and the things that we're going after now. As I mentioned, standardization, but we also are encouraging summer internships at these universities, which everybody's happy to host. It's amazing how Singapore and Rio de Janeiro get most of the applications. I don't know what the... but I'm trying to teach there myself, actually, from time to time. But it's nice for people to do that exchange program. And I will tell you this, being the nice thing on this campus, there's a lot of open housing in the summer that is located right by the College of Engineering, and we take full advantage of that as the students come in and they can work together and actually room together. So this is a fantastic place for engineers, and this is a fantastic environment and an opportunity. This is the impact of what we've done since, looks like 2011. We've offered, again, the only one in the U.S., 40 MS degrees, 127 certificates. These are some of our enrollment numbers. I'd be remiss if I did not mention the provost for helping support this financially, not with just words, the dean of our College of Engineering. And I can say that if it wasn't for Jeff Morgan, we would not be online today. So I really recognize his efforts. As far as coordination and working with the students, that's not an easy job, as well as working with the talent. So that would have to be contributed over to Jenna and Brittany over there. Sometimes you have to encourage the faculty, other times you have to bully, depending on who they are. And there's a lot of times that students need help because they're a little bit apprehensive in looking at these things. But because of the way that Debbie has it set up in JC, it really moves quite smoothly. So I really need to say that I might get some credit for this, but I deserve the least amount of credit. I just show up and teach, and they make sure everything else works. And it has been a fantastic, successful story, and I couldn't be more grateful for the opportunity, and I really appreciate the time to talk about this. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, and I think I'll start before I log in. The way I was going to approach today was to describe our online program and its kind of development. So we do hold, actually, early childhood. So we have a fully online master's program in early childhood in the College of Education, as well as several other online programs. Early childhood was actually one of our first online programs, and we started development actually back in 2009. And we, as a whole faculty, were challenged to begin to consider having more online type courses. And at that time, hybrid, the idea of hybrid courses was the new thing. I guess I'm double microphoned. And so my working colleague and I in early childhood said, oh, okay, we can try it, and why not? So back in 2009, we decided we didn't personally know much. We hadn't taken the courses on how to successfully teach online. We used Blackboard as a platform. It wasn't called Blackboard back then. It was WebCT. There we go. And so we thought, well, we can try this, and we decided to do a self-study for 2 years and kind of planned out what we needed to read, what we needed to do professional development-wise to make sure when we went to our professional research conferences that we always were seeking workshops and presentations, papers on the use of online, specifically with our content area, but really in general, anything, so that we could learn to be good educators in using that platform. So our first year, we actually took only half of our courses, and then even within those courses, we only did some sections that we did hybrid. And we began to approach it from a research perspective, looking at, was there any difference in learning? Because we had to convince ourselves that we felt comfortable with this, that our students were going to still have the appropriate learning outcomes that we wanted them to have. Once we began to feel comfortable, we felt like, okay, we can do this. We worked with our, the coordinator within our college on developing good online courses. We moved everything to a hybrid. You know, and again, looking at, you know, what materials would need to be used to support certain learning, and became firm believers. We can definitely do this. One of our studies was with our actual students and beginning to understand how would they feel moving to an online class. Would they have preferred, did they enjoy it when they took a hybrid course? Did they enjoy, once we moved fully online to a course, understanding their participation? Why did they choose the online section versus the face-to-face section? So we could get to know our students. What we found pretty much makes sense when we studied the demographics. Our students, similar to what was mentioned earlier by Ginger, our students are working full-time, which we look for those students in our master's program because we need them to have the experience and bring it, and it makes a richer environment for us. So they wanted to. They were working late. They had jobs, and 5:30 was not an easy thing for them to do, to drive an hour from their job sites to get to campus. And it became very evident to us that online was the answer for our students. So we eventually, every single program course within our area became an online program, and we launched it. We sent out all of our things. We no longer have face-to-face courses, so that our applicants understood that. Since then, we have had nothing but positive returns for our students. Our students are graduating in, you know, quick amounts of time, and in the College of Education for the second year in a row, we actually have received #1 ratings of online graduate programs in education in the nation. So something's going well, which we can feel very happy about. We didn't do it alone, believe me. We had a lot of help as far as making sure we were putting good content in there. All of the things that were stated today are tools that we do use. We watch YouTube videos, we do papers. We have a debate class, is one of our coursework. So we hold online debates, yet it's not a face-to-face class that we're debating in. And so we do use things like discussion board. And so today I thought, what was the one thing that I could really share that I think has been very successful? And through our self-study and of learning from other researchers and other professors, what did we learn about how to be personable, how to bring that human interaction in an online world? And what we learned is some tricks. And one of our things with Blackboard, and especially we did it with our debate course, was we learned to be very specific. And one thing that Ginger pointed out was to give expectations and to, you know, what are you going to grade, have a rubric and things like that. And that is something that we definitely did. And so I wanted to point out things that we learned that made a difference, because we were feeling like our discussion board was lacking in what we wanted. Often it was great response. And we're like, that's not a discussion. That is, you know, just an opinion. Okay. And so we began, and we learned from another university's program in our discussion board to be very specific and saying, how long would a discussion, what does a discussion look like in this regard? So we put things such as, you're expected to give a thorough first response with a minimum of 300 words. And so students are like, you really, it has to be 300? Can it be 305? You know, they do things like this, but we tell them it's a minimum standards, so that they understand what we're supposed to do. We also do things such as, you will show evidence of reading by citing what you've learned, not with a reference page, but you are expected to cite the author of any reading and give us the page number so that others may seek that same information. Many of our students do put links. I watched such and such lecture, and that's part of a discussion board. We have specific guidelines for how you respond to appear within a class. A response is more than, I agree, great video, great lecture, and it has a minimum of 8 sentences. And again, we laughed when we were putting this because we did feel as though, do we need to be telling adults how to respond? The answer is yes. They were not giving us what we were hoping. They weren't truly engaging. They were just trying to do the minimum. And once they began to truly engage, realizing what the expectation was, our discussions have become really deep and meaningful and perspective changing, idea changing. The debate class is written in such a way that you're reading journal articles that are on opposite sides of specific educational debates. And you are trying to think through what would a position paper of my own look like? And students begin to give the feedback to say, I disagree with you on this point. Read such and such. And so they challenge one another through our discussion board. So it becomes a way to have students, and sometimes they come back and said, I watched that lecture, I read that paper, I still disagree because of these points. But what they've learned to do through one another and through a discussion board was to strengthen their position and to really think through how they were doing. And all of this was occurring online. So when we see things like this and we get feedback from our students of, this class really made me think, this class made me understand how to support my thinking more and my opinions more, or know that I was too opinionated and I had no supporting evidence. But they do that with one another. So that was a thing that, but we forced the minimum standards within a discussion board in order to have the appropriate guidelines that then became just our standard in our program. And similarly, that what was mentioned earlier, again from Ginger, was our whole program, all of our courses have that same rubric in discussions, have the same guidelines of what a discussant looks like and the participation level looks like. So we did try to keep that consistency so students know what the expectation was going to be. I think if I could tell you some issues, things that we learned through the whole thing, was that a personal touch does matter. So students, to keep them as feeling like they are part of a program, that they are part of a university. We have students, because it's online, our students aren't Houston-based students. So we do have students from around the country. We have fewer, and this is something that's interesting, we have fewer out of state. We have many in-state Texas, not Houston-based. Out of state, when we've begun to communicate with those that are showing interest, especially when last year we got our #1 rating, a lot of student interest. We heard you're the best program for early childhood. What held them up was, well, I'm expected to pay out-of-state tuition, yet I can participate in your program and not be in Houston. So that's something that we've just brought up to the university level of, this is someone who's not using our school resources. Should we consider what happens when you have an online program? Is it a same tuition level? So that's way above me, but those are some of the feedback. But the personal touch, greetings, following up with our students, kind of watching who's doing what. Not babysitting by any means, because again, these are adults and there is a responsibility on their behalf, but definitely making them know that we do want them in our program. We're happy they are there, and keeping up and getting to know them. So doing something, I really loved the flip it, so to know, introduce one another. We've done it simply in a text format, but I think that makes it even better, so thank you for that tip. We do use that weekly notes that was used in just saying, you know, how's the weather in your part of the world? We do it as almost like a newsletter each week to say Houston is hot and humid, you know, and making it kind of funny, but that's just kind of our way. Our assessments have been all over the place. So I think the beauty of looking at a face-to-face and an online, the assessments do not have to be varied. A paper is a paper, a test is a test, and we haven't found any difference in the need for how our assessment goes. There was a question earlier on something that was sent out when we were doing the panel is what about honesty, the honesty policy and things like that. And quite honestly, the honesty policy for us is simply, you know, stated that this is my work, and you know that's kind of what we can do. We can't. Can we verify it? Yes, we've used Turnitin and those type of things, and you can tell if through Turnitin if this is original work to a point. But definitely, we leave that still to the students that they are putting an honesty policy. And that, of course, is always, of course, it's going to be a question because we don't see them. I will say from discussions to papers, work tends to be very similar phrasing. You can tell if a student suddenly that doesn't even sound like them. We can tell that happens. Do I know that it's truly Lee Mountain, Lee are my example, Lee Mountain who's taken the course the whole semester? I can't. So definitely there are those concerns, but I will say having students in our program, then somebody's doing the same program because they turn in the same type of work and they seem very similar. So we haven't really seen that. One of the other questions that we've had when people have asked on campus, it was how have we handled the international students? Many of our international student questions that come to us during the interest or the admissions has been, we want to be in your program, and our college has a very heavy international student population. My program area has a very high, especially in my doctoral program, we have a lot of international students. Countries are supporting these students to come over to learn our field and bring it back to their country with a 3-year contract. You know, there's all different things. With this program, the university still has rules of international students. We can have a student in Singapore, Hong Kong, do a class. That doesn't stop them. Many of our students want to come here, and then that poses a problem because being in the U.S., you can't participate in a fully online program. And you have a percentage of courses that are supposed to be face-to-face. So that has been some of our difficulty because they're still considered international students. So that's kind of where we are with that question. And you know, we kind of work other things. I think that needs to be, I'm looking at the clock, and we're almost out of time. They're going to kick us out of this room. So
Thank you very much.
that's it. Sure.